It was just so, I don't understand. Hello there, it's Samantha. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Samantha, as I just said, and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I'm coming to you with my April/Owls wrap-up. If you don't know, in the month of April, it was the Owls Magical Readathon, or OWL, which stands for Ordinary Wizarding Level, which are the exams that the characters of Harry Potter take in their 5th year at Hogwarts. Essentially, this is a readathon, which was created by G from Book Roast, so thank you so much to G for hosting this really fun readathon. This was actually my first time taking part, and there's one in April, and then in August, I believe, there are the newts. So those will be in August, and basically, essentially, she created this like career booklet, and you choose the career that you want, and then to do that, you have to take however many owls, you also have to take however many newts. I decided that I wanted to be an astronomer, but I also challenged myself to try and complete all of the owls. Unfortunately, I didn't do that, but I did get pretty close. I might change career paths in August if I feel like it. That is a lot of prefacing. I read a lot of books this month. I read a total of 11 books and 1 short story, so I read 12 things that I need to talk about in this video. So it's going to be a long one, so maybe go make yourself a cup of tea or coffee or choose your poison, and we're going to get into it. Oh, I'd also like to clarify, I am like really channeling the inner Hufflepuff today, but I am in fact a Slytherin, so all of my page counts and everything went towards Slytherin. I do look like a Hufflepuff, but I'm just obsessed with this shirt because I recently bought it. Okay, and this is a really long intro, but I've also decided that I wanted to start including some statistics in my videos. Let me know if that is something you don't want to see or something that you do want to see, but I've seen a lot of people do this in the past where they go over kind of like the amount of a certain genre that they read and stuff like that, and I just think it's interesting, so let me know if that's something you want to see or not, but in this video I'm going to try it out. Let me know what you think. In the month, I listened to 2 audiobooks, I read 8 ebooks, and I read 2 physical books. In terms of genre, I read 1 anthology, 6 contemporaries, 2 fantasies, 1 mystery thriller book, 1 picture book, and 1 short story. 4 of those books were adult, 1 was a children's book, and 7 were YA. In terms of ratings, I rated 2 books 2 stars, 2 books 3 stars, 2 books between 3 and 4 stars, 3 books 4 stars, 1 book 4.5 stars, and 1 book 5 stars. This would work a lot better if I didn't give half-star ratings. So the first book that I read during the month was actually not for the owls. So the first book I read was If I Never Met You by Avari McFarlane. This was a book that I saw on sale on Kindle for 99p, and I was like, okay, let's try that out. And this is an adult romance book, which is not something I typically read, but I really wanted to just try it. I was just in the mood for some romance books. So I started off the month by finishing off this book. I'd read most of it in March, but I did have some left. And this book follows our main character, Lori, and Lori was in a very long-term relationship. She had been in a relationship with this guy since university, and she's now in her late 30s, and out of nowhere her boyfriend Dan just decides that he doesn't want to be with her anymore, and then it turns out that there was actually sort of another woman involved, and now she's pregnant. And to make matters worse, Dan and Lori still work in the same law firm, so to try and make Dan jealous, Lori starts up a fake relationship with this guy called Jamie, who's kind of a little bit younger, not like super young, but just like 5 years younger than her or something like that, who also works at the same law firm. It has the fake dating trope, which I love, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was not exactly what I was expecting going into it, but I did end up really enjoying it. The reason I didn't love it was because the first quarter of this book was kind of slow because it was dealing with the breakup and the fallout of that relationship, and it was just quite sad because Lori had just been in this relationship for so long, and she was so upset and broken by this breakup that it was really sad to read in the beginning. But once the fake dating started, I started to love it, and I loved how much Lori grew throughout the novel, and she became such a more confident woman. It was just really great to read. The next thing that I read was the short story. This was to complete one of my owls, and so for this I read a short story called Someone Else Somewhere Else by Janelle Jack-Pierre, and this is a 15-page short story, and it's just basically following these twins, and they move in next door to a family, and there is some child abuse going on in that family. And so it's just a very short, quick story. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars just because I wasn't really sure how to rate it because it was such a short story. I didn't really know how to rate it, but I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it didn't really have any impact on me. But this completed the Owl of Divination, which is to assign numbers to your TBR and use a random number generator to pick it. So the random number generator picked that. So that is what I read. So the next book that I got was one that I got for review from NetGalley, and this book is coming out on the 11th of June, and this book was called Just Friends by Holly McCulloch. So this book follows our main character B, and B is pretty unhappy. She's just kind of dissatisfied with her life. She's not really enjoying her job. She's been very unlucky in love, and she's just kind of like in a slump. So she decides to start dating again, and she has some absolute disastrous dates. She still hangs out with a lot of her friends from university, including one person called Peter. He's always kind of been in her like friend zone, but all of a sudden she starts seeing him in a different light, and she's like, I don't know whether to take a chance on turning this into something more or not. And It's about that, about whether Bea and Peter are going to get out of the friend zone or not. As I said, I received this book for review. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It was a really fun, quick, lighthearted read. Bea was a very goofy character, but I found her pretty lovable. She kind of reminded me of Georgia Nicholson from the Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging books. If you haven't read those, would highly recommend, in that she was just kind of like such a weirdo and she does some really stupid things and you're like, why are you doing that? She was pretty awkward, but I really enjoyed reading it from her perspective. I will say, like, a lot of it was pretty unrealistic, but that normally happens in rom-coms and most books, to be honest. But it was really fun, definitely very British. Like, I feel like, I don't know if it's just me because I live in England and like I didn't grow up here, but whenever I read a British book, I can like full on tell that it's British. And also it's probably to do with the fact that I read a lot of American books, but yeah, I can like hardcore tell that this was a British book. You might not enjoy it if that's not your thing, but I enjoyed it. This completed my astronomy owl, which was to read the majority of this book when it was dark outside. I was reading this book on my phone at nighttime in bed and it was just such a fun time. So the next book that I have to talk about is one that I didn't read for the owls. It was just one that I was reading before the readathon started and I just didn't manage to finish it in March. So I finally finished it in April and I'm very disappointed because it was one of my most anticipated books of 2019 and it was on my 5-star prediction list and it wasn't a 5-star. That book was Into the Crooked Place by Alexandra Christo. This book follows 4 main characters, Tavia, Wesley, Karam, and Saxony, and they all live in this city. And they're kind of all like criminals in their own way. All of a sudden this new magic starts appearing on the streets and it is very dangerous. It's in a world where new magic doesn't exist anymore. There's old magic, but there hasn't been a new type for a really long time, and all of a sudden it starts showing up. And this motley crew is kind of trying to figure out why and put a stop to it because it's dangerous. It definitely gave me hardcore Six of Crows vibes, so if you like that, you might enjoy this, but I personally did not like Six of Crows and I did not like this book. I found it to be extremely boring, and I also think that this trope is just overdone. The 4 like criminal characters coming together to, you know, overthrow the bad guy. And this is a duology as well, so it's like even more Six of Crows like in that way. I just didn't like it. I didn't really like any of the characters. I will say, like, my kind of favorite was like Tavia, but I still didn't really like her very much. Didn't like Wesley, didn't like Saxony, didn't like Karam. It was just, no, I just didn't like any of them, to be honest. They were all just very tropey, and yeah, and also like they were just like, you know, they're 4 characters and then it was split up into 2 relationships and you're like, great, okay, wow, something brand new. It was just like not my thing. I found it to be very boring and I'm just so sad because I loved Alexandra Christo's first book and I really thought I was going to love this, but I didn't. So I ended up giving this a 2 out of 5 stars and I won't be reading the sequel. I will read more of Alexandra Christo's books because I loved To Kill a Kingdom. The next book I read was another one that I got for review from NetGalley, and that was It Sounded Better in My Head by Nina Kenwood. This book follows our main character Natalie, and she is 18. She's just finishing high school and she's about to go to university when all of a sudden her parents out of nowhere announce that they're getting divorced. And this really surprises Natalie because she has always thought that they were like just the perfect little family. They seemed very happy, and all of a sudden they're divorcing. To make matters worse, her best friends Zach and Lucy are in a relationship and she always kind of thought that she would end up with Zach, and so she's kind of feeling left out. But then an unexpected romance starts. Things just kind of go from there. That wasn't a great description, but I don't want to spoil things. This book is a coming of age story. It's about Natalie coming to terms with herself. She really grows as the character throughout the book. She used to have terrible acne, so she's very self-conscious about her skin and her body, you know, as most teenage girls are. Most teenagers in general, I'd say. And also she has to come to terms with her parents' divorce and navigate through that, and then this brand new relationship. I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very cute, fun read, which also dealt with the slightly heavier themes of divorce and also anxiety and learning to accept your flaws. I really enjoyed the tropes that were used in this book. I can't unfortunately mention what the trope was, but the love interest, like, it's a trope that I really, really love. I don't want to mention it because it is like a spoiler, but so nice. I really liked the portrayal of Natalie's anxiety and self-esteem issues. I thought it was really well done, and I think if I had read this when I was younger, it really would have like struck a chord with me. I really enjoyed the relationships in this book, the familial relationships, the friendships. It was just all just very sweet and cute, and I especially loved the sibling relationship because Zach has 3 brothers, I think. Sometimes like they were making fun of each other and I was just like, this is just like exactly how sibling relationships are. Well, my sibling relationships. I really enjoyed the writing style. It was really quick and fun. You read a lot of Natalie's inner monologue, just her rambling thoughts, and I really enjoyed that. Overall, it was a cute, funny, lighthearted read. And yeah, I would definitely recommend picking it up. It came out on the 30th of April. And also, fun fact, this book is set in Australia, which is really cool. I don't really read a lot of books that are set in Australia, but it is. And so yeah, it actually came out in Australia last year, but it's being released in America and the UK today. And that completed another one of my owls, which was for Muggle Studies, which is to read a contemporary. The next book that I read was another one that I got for a review, but I got this a long time ago from NetGalley, and I read it to complete the Ancient Runes owl, which is to read a book with hearts on the cover. So I read Love Hurts by Mallory Blackman. This is an anthology of short stories and extracts from books, all centered around love in one way or another. I ended up giving it a 3 stars overall, I think, but I really just was not a particular fan of this book. I would have enjoyed it if it had just been short stories, I think, because even though I'm not a huge fan of short stories, I don't read them often, they can sometimes be really well done. But this was mostly extracts, which I find really odd because it wasn't like the beginning of a book. It would just be a random chunk from the middle of a book, and you're like, but I don't understand the rest of the context, so I don't understand what's going on. I only ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars because it was just weird. Like, I do sometimes like go to a bookstore and pick up a book and read the first chapter or something, but like the first chapter, I don't flip to a random page and read a chunk. So I just thought it was kind of like, it didn't need to be published, basically. So yeah, I only gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I read is one of the most disappointing books I've ever read in my life. Let me tell you. The next book that I read was Night Film by Marisha Pestle. This book has been so hyped on BookTube. So hyped. Especially like a couple years ago, circa like 2015, 2016. People were reading this. People were loving it. They were raving. I bought this book in like 2017, I think, and I was so excited to read it, but I was intimidated because I know that a lot of people say that this book is spooky, because basically this book is about a girl called Ashley Cordova who, at the beginning of the book, we find out that she has committed suicide. She is the daughter of a famous horror film director called Stanislas Cordova, and basically his films are so gruesome and scary and twisted that they've actually been banned. So this book follows Scott McGrath, who is an investigative journalist who had previously looked into Cordova, the director. And so when he hears that Ashley has committed suicide, he just doesn't believe that that's what happened, and he is determined to reopen his investigation about Cordova. And basically with the help of 2 other characters, he starts really looking into it, and it starts to get all twisted and crazy. And I didn't like this book really at all. I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly disliked it. I found it to be so boring. I hated Scott. I was just like, I don't care what happens to Scott. I just did not care about Scott at all. We found out a lot about his life as well, and I was like, I just don't care. I just want to know the mystery surrounding Ashley and the Cordova family. And like, the ending was just so stupid. Like, it was just so, I don't understand. I do not understand why this book is so popular, because I just found it to be so boring. The twist was like the worst twist I've ever read. I hated this book, really. That's all I can say. I don't really know why I gave it a 2 instead of a 1. I guess it's because like I didn't like actively hate it the whole time. There were bits when I was like a little bit hooked, but like the blurbs say like hypnotically suspenseful, intensely gripping. Like, it wasn't. Little rant over. It sucked. Moving on. We can get rid of it and forget that it ever happened. It also like didn't even scare me, and like I was expecting to be a little bit scared, but I wasn't. Oh, and this completed my arithmancy owl of reading a book outside of your favorite genre, because I don't typically read thrillers ever. I think this was my first one, possibly since I started my channel. I've been doing this for 6 years. How have I not read a thriller in that time? Surely I have. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. The next book that I read was probably my favorite one of the month, and I finally read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Finally read a Christina Lauren book, and I loved it. This book follows our main character Olive, and at the beginning of this book it is her twin sister's wedding, and unfortunately everyone at the wedding gets food poisoning apart from Olive and Ethan. And Ethan is the older brother of the groom, and Olive and Ethan hate each other. So the whole wedding party has food poisoning, but they don't want to waste the honeymoon because it's non-refundable. So Olive's sister Amy convinces her to go on this honeymoon and to take Ethan with her, even though they hate each other. So it is a hate-to-love romance, and oh my god, I don't even want to say it anymore. Just read the book. It's so much fun. I love a hate-to-love romance so much. This book has one of the best scenes ever towards the end of the book. I don't want to say what it is, but it is just like iconic, and I was like, oh my god, I am living for this. It was fantastic. It was cute, it was funny, it was sexy, it was everything you want in a book. And I read this book to complete the Care of Magical Creatures, and the challenge for this was to read a book with a creature that had a beak on the cover, and this book had like 2 birds on it. The next book that I purely read just to complete one of the owls, because I was like, I have like not very much time left and I'm not going to complete all the owls, so let's just read this. I read The Tale of Tom Kitten by Beatrix Potter. This was to complete my Potions Owl, which was to read a book under 150 pages. This book was 58 pages or something like that. I only read it for that reason. I didn't give it a rating because this is a picture book. I don't know how to review that. So yeah, I read it. That's all. It goes towards my Goodreads challenge and it completed that owl. I have nothing else to say about it. The next book that I read was to complete the Defense Against the Dark Arts owl, and that book was Night Owls by Jen Bennett. In America, this book is called The Anatomical Shape of a Heart. So if you're like, oh, I've never heard of this book, that's why. This follows our main character, Beatrix. One night, Beatrix meets this boy called Jack on the Night Owl, which is the night bus, and they just are instantly attracted to each other, and through various circumstances they get to know each other, and she gets to know who Jack really is. I love Jen Bennett books. I've read almost all of her books now. They're just so much fun. They're always these like cutesy romances, but they also cover heavier topics. Every single one of them always has some sort of darker theme to it. So I will say that there's a content warning in this book for self-harm, suicidal thoughts, and attempts. That's all mentioned in the book, so just be wary of that. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This was definitely my least favorite of her books, but this was her first young adult book, so it makes sense that I didn't enjoy it as much as her later ones. I have noticed that in her books there is quite a formula to it. It's kind of like the 2 characters meet and both of them are kind of like quirky characters. They have some sort of weird hobby or weird job, something like that. There's something weird about them. They're a little bit quirky. They meet a little way into the book, they start a relationship. Later on in the book, something gets revealed which kind of puts the relationship at risk, and by the end of the book, they're back together and happily ever after. And that just, it happens in every single one of her books. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy them, but when you've read a lot of them, you're just kind of like, wow, this is the same, except slightly different. But I did still really enjoy it. I gave it a 3.5. It was fun. The next book that I read was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling, and I read this book to complete the History of Magic owl, which was to read a book featuring witches or wizards. Obviously, this whole readathon is centered around Harry Potter. I couldn't complete the readathon without reading a Harry Potter book, and I just so happened to be on that book in my reread of the series because I started rereading them last January and I just took forever to get on with it. So I listened to the audiobook version of this, the one that's narrated by Stephen Fry. I just love putting them on in the background when I'm doing something else. Like, they're great. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I will say it is still my least favorite book in the Harry Potter series. It's just so long and all of the action happens at the end. Like the last 150 pages is where the action is. But it's still a good book. But yeah, it's my least favorite in the Harry Potter series. And the last book that I read in April was to complete the Charms Owl, and that's to read a book with white on the cover. And for that, I read The Anti-Virginity Pact by Katie Wismer. If you don't know, Katie is a booktuber. She has her channel, Kate's Book Date. I love her videos. So when she announced that she was coming out with this book, I was so excited. And I got approved for a copy from NetGalley. This was a book that I got for a review. This book basically follows our main character, Meredith. And Meredith is a preacher's daughter, so she's grown up in a very religious household, but she is actually an atheist. And so she signs this pact with her best friend Joanna to lose their virginity by the end of the year. But unfortunately, the mean girl of the school gets her hands on the pact and distributes it to the whole school, and you can only see Meredith's signature on it, not Joanna's. And all of a sudden, after the pact gets distributed, people are just treating her differently. Guys are like, people are calling her a slut. Guys are being really gross to her, like making jokes that they're going to help her complete her checklist. But she meets a boy who doesn't know about the pact, and basically the pact puts her relationship with her family and her relationship with this new boy Sam at risk. And yeah, I feel like the synopsis for this is a little bit misleading because the pact doesn't really play that big of a part. Like, definitely the pact puts other things into action, but there isn't so much focus around the pact, if you get what I mean. This book was a lot darker than I was expecting. It covered a lot of difficult themes. I will put all of the content warning in the description, so take care before you pick this one up. It's definitely a tough one. I really enjoyed the friendship between Meredith and Joanna. Meredith was a very quiet, anxious girl, and Joanna was a lot more outspoken, so I think they balanced each other out well. She did have a younger sister called Harper. I liked seeing their relationship grow. I didn't really love the relationship between her and Sam. I just felt like he didn't really add anything to the story necessarily, so I just kind of was like, I don't know, I just didn't like him. I think the anxiety representation was very, very well done. There were things that I highlighted and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I remember feeling like in high school. I loved her writing style. She had some absolutely beautiful passages. I highlighted so much in that damn book. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it, but I do think that the synopsis misled me a little bit. I think that the best way to describe this would be like kind of the darker version of Easy A, if you've seen that movie. Like it covers a lot of the same things, but on a much darker scale. Like it's less like Easy A is definitely like a rom-com, and the Anti-Virginity Pact is definitely like a darker exploration of these themes. I really enjoyed the exploration of religion in this book. I myself am not a religious person, so I didn't feel offended by it or anything. And I think it's really brave of her to try and cover this topic, because I do think a lot of people will be negative towards this book because of the religious aspect. It's very much a taboo subject, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. As I said, wasn't what I was expecting, but I still enjoyed it. Oh my god, I have been talking for like 40 minutes, so I'm gonna hate editing this video so much. So those were all of the books that I read in the month of April. Please let me know what you read down below. If you took part in the owls, let me know how you did. I'm like very happy with how my reading went. Even though I didn't complete all the owls I wanted to, I still completed all the owls that I needed to become an astronomer. I definitely do think I'll be trying to take part in the newts in the summer. From January to March, I read a total of 9 books, and I read more than that in 1 month. So yeah, it's been a good reading month for sure, even though it was actually a bit of an average reading month in terms of my ratings. That is all I have for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below, and please leave me a comment down below telling me what books you read, or if you read any of the same as me. Let me know your thoughts. Let's just start a discussion down there. But yes, I really need to go. I have to go write an essay. So yes, also my voice hurts because I've been talking for so long. But that's all, so I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!